Since about the age of 19, I had a bunch of sports-related injuries, and one really bad one almost broke my neck, and I really had to quit.
What is OsteoStrong and how does it work?
So the interesting thing is,
Kyle Zagrodzky is the founder and CEO of OsteoStrong, a global wellness franchise revolutionizing skeletal health and human performance. A lifelong entrepreneur and biohacker, Kyle has launched multiple successful companies and now works to share the science of strength and longevity with the world. He's also the host of the Unbreakable.me podcast and a frequent speaker at Tony Robbins events.
so I am of the belief the best type of workout for someone is the one that they'll do. If I like to do resistance bands and OsteoStrong and somebody else just wants to take walks, both those things are better than doing nothing.
I'm super motivated by this conversation. What I'm also intrigued by is the fact that it can help with the muscle.
It's not going to make your muscles bigger. It's going to make...
Welcome to the Art of Living Well podcast, where we empower you to take charge of your health and happiness. We're Marnie
And Stephanie,
board-certified integrative health practitioners, holistic wellness coaches, and passionate explorers of all things mind, body, and soul.
each week we bring you expert insights, real-life stories, and practical tools to help you bridge the gap between where you are now and where you truly want to be. From longevity and nutrition to mindset, movement, and healing, we dive deep to uncover the root causes of wellness and vitality.
Join us and our growing community as we explore what it really means to create your art of living well in a way that's authentic, sustainable, and uniquely yours.
Kyle, welcome to the Art of Living Well podcast. We're really excited to have you on today to talk about a very important topic that Marnie and I have actually shared recently, that is bone density and bone health and the impact that this has on your longevity and your health span and vitality. And that's just something that we are super passionate about in general, as I know you are. And it's funny, we actually mentioned OsteoStrong in this episode that we dropped, and now it's going to be 2 months when this episode is dropping, where we talked about it. So it's perfect timing that we're having you on to share, since you are the founder and CEO. And yeah, we're just excited to dive right in.
Super cool. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me on. I think this is a very important subject, and it certainly has grown in interest in recent years. When I started the company back in 2012, everybody's kind of like, huh, what? You know, we didn't even know how to describe what it is that we were doing to people in a way they would understand. So definitely the evolution of thought, the questions people are asking and that kind of thing in this space in general has absolutely been transformative and blown up over the past 5 years. It's really been impressive to see what's happened within the longevity and wellness space as we've seen it.
Agree. And so before we dive in and talk about that, one fun question we like to ask. So beach walk, mountain hike, or yoga mat? Where do you feel most at peace?
Mountain hike. I love the mountains. Yeah.
We're big mountain fans also.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite
Yeah.
mountain hike, or is it just any mountain hike?
Well, I live on a ranch just outside of Nashville. So we get hills out here, and I go hike on my ranch every day, and I take care of the horses and stuff like it's like a part of my morning routine. So I do love that. And it's not a mountain hike, but Estes Park, Colorado, so many amazing hikes out there. Just got back from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Not too many mountain hikes up there. We went up to Taos and did a little bit of hiking up there. Anytime I can get on a mountain, and I love being near streams. I don't know why that is. If I'm around moving water on a rock, I'm happy.
So calming.
Yeah, it's like better than any music I want to listen to.
Well, we couldn't agree more. It's funny when people say like, okay, go to that, like your happy place or your calm place. I literally am in the mountains with the stream, like you said.
Yeah.
Like there's something about the water
Or
and
waterfalls.
yeah, well,
It's
waterfalls.
Always
majestic.
peaceful.
Absolutely
Waterfalls.
majestic.
It is. I'm going to design that life, Marnie. Speaking of design a life
Anyway.
where that's where I'm living someday. Yeah.
Kyle, we would love to hear a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey and how it led you to found OsteoStrong, obviously in a nutshell, because we don't want to focus just on that.
I'm fourth of 4 sons that my parents had, and I am definitely the black sheep of the family. I come from a very academic family. My dad went to MIT. One of my brothers graduated #1 in his medical school class from Harvard. The other one went to Wharton. These guys like ran in my house. And then there was me, I was a C student. And it was because I'm dyslexic. And before we knew what ADD was, I was a poster child for that. I was that guy. And so I was really driven by a fear of failure because I didn't want to be like the village idiot in my household. And so I just had this insane work ethic. And so when I graduated from college, I was just like, God, what a waste of time, right? Like, no one's going to hire a guy with a C, right? So I have to go out there and figure it out myself. So from that perspective, I'm really not that impressive of a person. Like really smart. I think I'm very smart and bright. Like I think I got all the wiring there, but for whatever reason, dyslexia kept me from being an academic. So I just started going out there and starting businesses and doing different things. Started a software company. I never knew how to write software code. And then we ended up doing everything from writing the database, the code, everything. And my wife and I bought 9 fitness franchises back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and we were franchisee of the year for that company. And then started OsteoStrong in 2012. So I'm one of those guys. If it scares you, you must. Like it was actually one of the things that Tony Robbins taught me. I learned about. I listened to a recording or whatever, and he's like, "Fear is your compass." And I just always everything I've ever done, it scared me first. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'll go figure it out. So I just kind of had this idea that you're only going to live one time, right? And you listen to videos and things like that of old people telling you things they regret, not taking chances, not loving, not being present, not, these kind of things. I said, well, I'll just start doing that now. So I just always wanted to leave a dent in the universe and in a positive way. Like it's kind of just always been my life mantra and everything I've done.
That's amazing. It's funny, we recorded a earlier conversation, an interview, and it kinda gets around this notion, like, clearly you're not living in a comfort zone, like, you're not living in a bubble where you're just comfortable doing what you're doing, but you recognize that your growth and your curiosity for life happens outside of your comfort zone, and you're willing to take those risks because a lot of people aren't. You're probably somewhat unique, and maybe I think that comes with the entrepreneurial drive too, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs are
Yeah, I mean, I think
similar.
that whole fear of failure thing, like I don't like living my life with fear, right? That's one of the things is, face your fears, right? There's chronic fears and then there's acute fears. The acute fears are spiders, snakes, heights, that kind of thing. The chronic fears are the worst because those are the ones that keep you from taking action, making that uncomfortable phone call that doesn't need to be made, or confronting a situation just because it's making you uncomfortable, so you avoid it. Those chronic ones are the ones that really keep you from experiencing life, in my opinion. But I think a lot of people have a fear of uncertainty. And I'm just like, my wife is great. She just has this idea like, I wouldn't care if you lost everything as long as we're together. I'd live under a bridge with you.
Oh,
Well, that's
that's
really
so
sweet. I
romantic.
mean,
So, so
that's
I'm,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
lovely.
Yeah, so
yeah.
we've been married 30 years, have 3 sons, so I mean, now we all live together on the ranch, so it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that sounds like
Wow.
a very
It
amazing
sounds like
life.
you've built a life you love, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's things about my life I haven't loved, and I think everybody goes through that, like, we all go through challenges and things you don't like, and somebody asked me just like last week, "What would you change, or what would you do to what do you regret?" I'm like, "I have lots of regrets. There's lots of things I would have liked not to have gone through, but I don't know who the heck I would be today had I not gone through those things." So, you say, "What aspects of your personality would you be willing to delete?" None.
Yeah.
Changing gears a little bit, can you tell our listeners, like, what is OsteoStrong and how does it work?
The interesting thing is I met Dr. John Jaquish as he was working on his PhD back in, like, 2011. And I was thinking about starting a fitness chain because I was running my software company at the time and I was getting super bored of it. And like, I want to just do something else. I'd kind of made up my mind I wasn't going to start another gym because I thought at the time there was like 35,000 gyms in the United States and the world just doesn't need another gym concept. I like the gym industry. I like gym people. I like people that do fitness and all that stuff. They just don't need another competitor. Let's let these people do the thing. And so I just leave the gym industry alone. But somebody's like, oh, you got to go meet Dr. Jake where she's got this new thing. I'm like, who's he? And why do I want to go meet this guy? So I went out and finally I listened to him go do this thing. And he was explaining how it worked. I'm like, I think this guy has potentially uncovered a new industry and doesn't even fully understand it. So I took him out to dinner and I was looking at his device and whatever. And I said, how many of these you sold? And he's like, yeah, less than half a dozen. I said, okay. And I said, I'm going to make a prediction and I'm not you just tell me it's true or false. I said, after 30 days, nobody's touching this thing that you sold to. He's like, what, are you reading my effing emails? And I said, no, I'm not reading your effing emails. I said, you've created something that is only taking 60 seconds of effort to do, yet gives all these results. Any benefit that anybody gets from it, they're going to attribute it to anything else, because we've been trained that in order to get a result, you have to work the muscle, get tired, get sweaty, etc. I said, no one's going to believe this. I
Yeah.
said, nothing else deserves to be in the same building. It's like the Bible. This is like, no other book deserves to be on the same shelf, right? I mean, so I said, okay, I'm going to go create a concept around this, and I'm going to build a chain. It's going to be worldwide. You're going to be famous. And he's like, yeah, I've had people tell me that before. I'm like, well, you haven't met Kyle Zagrodzky. I'll get this done. So I started it, just trying to figure out how in the world to do this. The idea of building bone density, and people, wanted to do it all along, but there was one thing that everybody was missing. And Dr. Julius Wolff created Wolff's Law back in 1890s. He did this study, and he found out if you put enough pressure on the human body, it will respond by building bone density. There was one question he couldn't answer for that study because the technology didn't exist, which is, how much pressure do you have to put on the body? And so there was a researcher by the name of Dr. Kevin Deere in 2012 out of Bristol, United Kingdom, published a study where he sought to answer this question: what's the minimum dose responsive pressure to trigger osteogenesis, or the growth of new bone? So he took these accelerometers and he attached them to the hips of the subject, and he measured the amount of impact force that they would experience from impact. And he expressed it in terms of multiples of their body weight, which was brilliant, because it stands to reason that a person who's 100 pounds doesn't need as much force to build bone as somebody who's 200 pounds. So multiples of body weight. He had over 700 subjects complete the study. And what he found out was that nobody in the study could trigger osteogenesis unless they exceeded a minimum of 4.2 multiples of their own body weight, which is an extraordinary amount of pressure. And so it kind of blew everything out of the water that exercise builds bone. Even weight training doesn't build bone. If you think about it, once you really start to get your head around that, you're like, okay, I weigh this much. I would need to put, 800 pounds of force or whatever, right? I got to get our bar and do that. You can only get it through high impact, but high impact is hard on your joints. In fact, you look across like athletic performance and elite athletes, and pound for pound, the strongest athletes in the world are gymnasts. But it's not because gymnasts work out harder than other athletes. It's because the impact force they're getting while they're doing it. However, high impact force is really bad for your joints. A gymnast will retire on average at the age of 19, and the ones that stick with it have a higher incidence of hip and knee replacement surgeries as they age. So impact good for bones, bad for joints. But there's something else that's interesting happen, but I'll get into that in a minute. The devices that Dr. Jake was or his prototype device, and the concept of it was to allow you to emulate high impact force without impact. So it would be pushing or pulling on a static object as hard as you can in order to achieve a level of force that will trigger osteogenesis. Now, the cool thing about it is that your body only has to experience that level of force for a moment, for a few seconds. And then once it does, your central nervous system takes over and automatically triggers that effect. That's it. You don't have to keep doing it. You don't have to fatigue yourself. There's no benefit to continually stimulating. It's like your central nervous system's like, yeah, I got it. I'm doing it. Leave me alone. So, and because muscle, takes like 36 to 40 hours to recover from like a resistance training workout. Your cardiovascular system takes about 8 hours. Your bone takes about 7 days. That's why you only come to OsteoStrong 1 day a week. So you're there for 10 or 15 minutes. You're actually doing about a minute of effort while you're there. If you add together like each device, you do it for 10 to 12 seconds and then you're done. And you go to the next one and there's 4 devices. So it's really like less than a minute of effort. And you're like, okay, well, I'm not even tired. I'm not even sweaty. And you can come dressed as whatever clothes you want. You're getting these crazy results where people are increasing, anywhere from 2 to 15% bone density in a year.
Do doctors have Black Friday sales? The doctors at Brickhouse Nutrition do. They just announced their Black Friday 30% off sale, the biggest sale of the year. The most impressive health and nutrition products in the industry are now 30% off, like Lean, the doctor-formulated weight loss supplement for people who want to lose meaningful weight without injections. And 30% off Creatone. Creatine designed just for women to help you look leaner, in shape, and toned without extra dieting or exercise. There's even 30% off Field of Greens, the only super fruit and vegetable drink shown in a university study to actually slow aging. And only Field of Greens promises better health results your doctor will notice. Every Brickhouse Nutrition product, from better sleep to superior collagen, is 30% off. But hurry, because these Black Friday deals go fast. Visit brickhousesale.com and save 30% off. That's brickhousesale.com.
So let me ask you a question about that. So you're increasing your bone density, but are you actually building muscle?
That's a great question. I get asked that question a lot. There's 4 things you will get from OsteoStrong. Okay. Will trigger your body to develop bone density. It will dramatically improve balance. Dramatically. It will dramatically increase strength. It's ridiculous. I'll talk to you about some studies and some anecdotal stuff as well. But the other thing that surprised me was it will eliminate almost every type of joint and back pain.
That's a
Oh,
pretty big
it is great.
thing
I'll
to
give you
say.
some example. I'll give you me as an example, but this is a story I could tell about thousands of people. So I had chronic joint and back pain my whole life, really not my whole life, but since about the age of 19, I had a bunch of sports related injuries, and one really bad one almost broke my neck. And I really had to quit doing any kind of really training because I was getting migraine headaches every week, every other week. I was taking 15 to 20 Advil a week. I'd gone to chiropractors, and I would go to the chiropractor at least once a week, sometimes twice, massage once a week. That was the only thing I could do to get through life. When my oldest son was in the 5th grade, I couldn't throw a football with him because it was a bad shoulder, bad elbow. I mean, it was my back, it was my neck, it was my right hip and my knees and my right shoulder. I was a mess. But, just like anything else and like anybody else that deals with chronic back pain, or any kind of pain like that, you just deal with it, right? Like I'm a husband, I'm a father. You just, here, give me my wooden spoon, and I go, right? You just deal with it. And so Jake was just prototype. I bought one. I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with this business. I don't even remember how many sessions. It was less than 7 because that was about after my 7th session, which I realized I was on a long plane ride and I'm coming in for a landing. And the flight attendant says, bring your seat back to the full upright position. And I'm like, wait a second, I didn't even recline my seat back. I'm the type of guy that would always sit on the aisle or business class because if I couldn't get up and walk around a stretcher flight, I would have a migraine headache and it would just happen. So I'm like, oh, wait a second. I didn't recline my seat. I didn't get up once. This was like a 4-hour flight. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no pain. So then I start paying attention. I'm like, wait a second, my knees don't even crack as I go up and down the stairs. My hip doesn't hurt. Like the pain's gone. My middle son, when he was born, his feet would turn out kind of sideways. So if imagine these are my feet on the ground, they kind of turn up like that. His feet would turn up like that. When he was like 3 or 4 years old, he couldn't stand on one foot for more than a second or two. He couldn't run. He had his hips were out of alignment. He had scoliosis. It was about mid scoliosis, not severe, but pretty bad. And so we took him to physical therapy for a year. His strength didn't have any improvement. His balance had no improvement. I started OsteoStrong. He was too short for the devices. We put extra pads and stuff on there. And I'm like, well, let's give it a go. What do we got to lose? After 4 or 5 sessions, I'm like, just how you doing? How you feeling? Whatever. And he's like 4 or 5 years old at the time. And after dinner one night, my wife and I called him over. Hey, Logan, let's see if you stand on one foot. Boom, stood on one foot solid for a minute for the first time in his life. He's now 20 years old. I
Wow.
had a physical therapist that if his feet don't correct themselves, he'll be in a cane and a walker by the time he's 30. Now he's perfectly normal. He's
Oh my
20 years old.
gosh.
He's athletic. He's fit. I mean, it's totally straightened out his spine, everything.
So I have mild scoliosis, but I'm old, so I don't know.
Tell you what, if you go join OsteoStrong and it doesn't work for you, I will personally refund your money out of my personal checking account. It'll straighten out your back in 6 months.
There's
Okay.
no way. Seriously?
100%. My wife had the same issue.
That would be unbelievable. I'd be thrilled. How can my back get straightened out after all these years?
Well, what is OsteoStrong will force symmetry when you're doing a session. It will force symmetry as you're doing a maximum force production against the device for 10 seconds, say. And so what you're doing is you retrain your ligaments, your tendons, and your muscles to strengthen themselves in a completely symmetrical way. It just retrains your muscles and it makes them strong too. So you're going to get a lot stronger. We've had people who've were like the president of the Middle Tennessee PGA. He was a member of one of the first centers I opened. And he came in after a month. He says, you screwed up my golf game. I said, what do you mean? He said, I can tell you within 10 feet of where every ball is going to land on the green with any club I pick up in golfing since I'm like 10 years old. He said, now I'm hitting the ball like 10, 15 yards further. He goes, I don't know where the hell the ball is going to go now. Olympic swimmers win gold medals. The athletes don't like to talk about OsteoStrong and the benefit because it is so dramatic and they don't want anybody else to know about it. I'll tell you about two that I can talk about. One, Rebecca Keat is a world-class triathlete trainer. She was also one of the most podiums ever scored female triathlete. Her partner, Siri Lindley, was 2-year championship triathlete competitor. And now they train these people. So I met them at a Tony Robbins event. I was telling them about OsteoStrong and they'll get around to it. So about a year or two later, they finally tried it. They started seeing benefits. Rebecca had retired because she tore her calf muscle. And she was like, after going to OsteoStrong for a month here, she's like, I don't have any more pain. I could go out for a 5-mile jog and this doesn't work. Well, that doesn't cause me problems. She goes, I may come out of retirement. And then one of their athletes, Tim O'Donnell, in 2019, this was her saying that on a podcast I was interviewing her on, so I could say this publicly. Otherwise, I would never leverage this. So she said it, not me. So she says, okay. And it took me an hour and a half to get her to say this because she was resisting. And even she says, Siri's going to kill me. She goes, Tim O'Donnell, he was in mid 2019, he was ranked about 250 in the world at Ironman, which is very respectable, but it's not going to get you any big endorsements or anything like that. 250 is good. I couldn't do that, but here he was. And he added OsteoStrong to his training. She goes, all of his scores and time started improving. He went and competed in that December 2019 in the Ironman competition in Kona, Hawaii, this big international competition. At that deal, he set the U.S. record at that event. She was like, now we require all of our triathletes. She goes, it's our secret weapon that the other clubs don't use. Yeah. And then I actually interviewed, and I didn't know it. I was doing like an Instagram live a couple months ago, and one of her athletes I didn't even know she was one of their athletes. I just like, oh, it's an OsteoStrong member who's a triathlete. She was in her late 50s, and she's like, oh man, I've done triathlons all my life. Now I've got osteoporosis. So I joined OsteoStrong, and she's like, I don't have osteoporosis anymore. And I haven't quit doing this because she goes, I was having to get steroid injections in my knees at the beginning of races because my joints were so screwed up. And she says, I started going to OsteoStrong for a couple of months. And then I'm like, before one of my races, she's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not in any pain. She goes, I went and ran that race. She says, I came in first place for my age class for the first time. And she says, the second place person was 50 minutes behind me. Now, there was one last one I'll tell you about this because both you girls are athletic and like to work out and all that stuff. So there was a woman by the name of Dr. Ann Sung, who was a contractor for NASA and a researcher, and they commissioned her to do a pilot study on OsteoStrong and actually published it in the Aerospace and Medical Journal in 2021. It's a great study. There's only one subject in it, and it's her. So it's not a very efficacious study. And normally I would never talk about such a small sliver of an experience, but there were two things about this study that were fascinating. One, she was a 31-year-old power lifter at the publishing of this study. Two, she's 31. And so meaning that she's already at peak bone mass, a woman who by her very sport that she is in is lifting the maximum amount of weight that she can lift. And she's at peak bone mass, probably the worst person to study whether or not your exercise thing is going to have a result. So I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. In 6 months, she saw almost a 7% increase in her bone density, but her physical strength went through the roof. She told me in her own words, she said, after 4 sessions, she goes, I was lifting 12% more weight than I can lift before OsteoStrong. And she said, I was like, yeah, that's really cool. We hear this. She said, you don't understand. She goes, at my level, She's, I'm a professional power lifter. This is like a hobby for professional. She said, for me to see a 12% increase in the amount of weight I lift, she goes, at the rate that I was increasing, and she's a super geek, tracking all of her stuff, monthly gains, all this stuff. She goes, it would take me a year to see a 12% increase in strength if I could even get that high. She goes, I saw it in 4 sessions. She goes, if I hadn't done the study myself, I wouldn't even believed it. If you think about fracture, so when people get osteoporosis, they're like, I don't want to fracture, right? And you guys know the statistics. If you fracture a hip over 65 years old, your 2-year mortality rate is substantially higher than breast cancer. And if you do survive it, your quality of life never returns. And so it's a scary thing. So elderly people, their number one fear is what? Falling. They're terrified of it. And so a fracture is 3 things. It is bone density, it is physical strength, and it is balance. And you can have good bone density, but if your balance is crap, you still have fracture, right? But you have all 3 of those. OsteoStrong does all 3, physical strength, balance, and bone density. And it affects the entire quality of your life because you can link, like you probably know this, type 2 diabetes, dementia, and osteoporosis are all interlinked. In fact, they call it type 3 diabetes. So they're all metabolic dysfunctional diseases. Bone density and muscle density go hand in hand with metabolic dysfunction. And so you're creating density in both bone and muscle. And so the preliminary study that was done on A1C for our devices showed that it reduced A1C better than metformin, better than restricted calorie diet.
So that's crazy. So how
I
is
have
that? I mean, I am blown away by this. And by the
so
way,
am
Kyle,
I.
I
I
actually
wanna
went,
sign
I've
up
done an
today.
intro session. So I've done a session. My mother-in-law in Sarasota, we gifted her like 6 months of OsteoStrong recently. And one has popped up near closer to me than the one I went to do my trial. I mean, I was blown away by the
Do
fact I
we
was in
have
and out
one
of there
in
in 10
Minnesota?
minutes. Oh yeah, there's like 4, Marnie.
Okay.
So there was one in Eden Prairie that was a little further away, and now there's one in like 5 minutes from my house. And so when we were getting ready to prepare for this, I was like, okay, I'm getting motivated to do it myself. I have osteoporosis and I have for like 4 or 5 years, and I shouldn't. Like I have it very early. So I'm super motivated by this conversation. But what I'm also intrigued by is the fact that it can help with the muscle. Like the example that you just gave of this power lifter. So by doing OsteoStrong and having this weight and
Pressure
pressure
or
than you would otherwise be able to, you're then how is that helping, like, in these other areas? Like, you mentioned, like, your A1C, but also your muscle mass.
It's not going to make your muscles bigger. It's going to make them stronger. And so how does it do that? So the balance and the A1C, I'll talk about muscle because it relates to A1C. How does your body regulate insulin spikes, right? Well, you have insulin receptors in your muscle cells. So when you consume glucose, your pancreas will release insulin. It will bind to the glucose, and then your muscles will take it in through its insulin receptors, and you get metabolic dysfunction when those insulin receptors aren't working so well or they're saturated, right? And the longer that stuff floats around your bloodstream, it causes inflammation, thickens the blood. You start seeing circulation issues, blah, blah, blah. Stuff you girls are likely already know, and probably your listeners know to some extent.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on. So, how do you add more insulin receptors to your muscle cells? That is what we believe is happening with OsteoStrong. But why? Because you're creating what's called, the scientific term is myofibril hypertrophy, or getting your muscle cells to become more dense. It is the holy grail of athletic performance, and it is damn near impossible to do. So, how do you do it? Like, how does OsteoStrong actually do it? Well, you see a bodybuilder. So bodybuilder, the nature of bodybuilder is to get the biggest muscles you can possibly get. Everybody likes to have bigger muscles. You just look better. Women and men both look better when they add more muscle mass. And so the problem is you're not developing muscle density. And so your muscles aren't getting stronger by what you're doing. I could explain more scientifically what's going on, but what actually ends up happening is your central nervous system is never getting a signal that the infrastructure of your muscles isn't enough, right? You could fatigue a muscle, But what's signaled that is sending is that you don't have enough energy stores in your muscles. So if your muscle's fatigued, your muscle will expand in size to hold more sarcoplasm. So you've got energy in sarcoplasm, you've got glycogen, creatine, and andesite triphosphate. Those are the three primary energy chemicals of the muscle cell. So when you fatigue a muscle, what you're feeling is the energy stores of that muscle cell has been depleted. So you're creating chemical fatigue. We'll call that sarcoplasm chemical. You're not creating a mechanical fatigue or a mechanical threshold. The only way that you hit a mechanical threshold is to do a maximum force production. But you can't, like doing a 1 rep max in a gym is insufficient to hit a mechanical threshold. The reason why is that if I'm doing a bench press and I'm pushing away from myself, there's a couple problems. One, my joint is in motion. And so my central nervous system is going to protect me by not allowing me to do too much weight. Two, when the bar is on my chest, I am in my weakest range of motion. And as I'm pushing the bar away, I'm becoming much more powerful. In fact, there was a study done out of Brazil that says I'm 7 times more powerful, the apex of that bench press, than I am with the bar on my chest because I have more leverage. So what we do is we put people on their strongest range of motion. The machine locks in place. And then after it does, you will start to push as hard as you can for about 10 seconds. When your joint and your muscle is not moving, you're just doing a static contraction as hard as you can. You sometimes, not every time, sometimes you will hit a maximum force production that you absolutely cannot go any further. And when you do that, that triggers your central nervous system to sense a mechanical threshold of your muscle cells, which will trigger myofibril hypertrophy. And then you just start getting freaking strong.
To anyone who's been feeling exhausted, puffy, foggy, or like your body isn't your own anymore, this is for you. Our 12-week midlife reset helps you get your energy back, clear your mind, balance your hormones, eat, and move in a way that works for your body, and actually feel good again. The first 10 people get $100 off with code RESET100. The link is in the show notes. And if you're ready, we're here and excited to support you. I'm just wondering why more people aren't talking about this, and like also from a logistical standpoint. So I like to work out. Stephanie likes to work out. I lift a few days a week. So are you lifting in addition to this?
I don't lift weights. I do heavy latex bands.
But like a person. I'm sorry, not you specifically, but like just thinking about, is this just adding another thing into the mix of a weekly plan? If you're trying to get, your muscles strong and your cardiovascular training.
Depends what your goals are, right? It all depends upon your goals, right? So I am of the belief that the best type of workout for someone is the one that they'll do. You're going to live longer if you're doing some regular form of exercise. But if I like to do resistance bands and OsteoStrong and somebody else just wants to take walks, both those things are better than doing nothing. Right. So I'm not one of these people that says, oh, yeah, I could sit here and I can go give an 8-hour dissertation on every geek thing in longevity biohacking. And I could tell you about the science of all this stuff. Right. Well, I'm sure you girls can do the same thing. That's why you don't, who wants to listen to an 8-hour podcast? And so you divide all this stuff up to talk about all the cool things you girls know. You can overload yourself with stuff to do. And I don't like to unload too much on people. I like to think of things that what will people actually do? With OsteoStrong, the great thing about it is between 90 to 100% of our customers everywhere around the world in the 14 countries we are in attend OsteoStrong every week. I have never, ever in my entire life and through everything I've ever seen and done, have I ever seen any exercise modality engaged with so consistently as OsteoStrong. Is that people will do it. Now, are there other things that you can do? Absolutely. OsteoStrong will not do anything for your cardio. You're not even going to break a sweat. You're not going to get your heart rate up. It's not going to do anything for muscle size. If those things matter to you and cardio should, then yeah, you should add cardio. You should add, you should add some form of resistance training if you want bigger muscles. But if you're like, nah, I just don't want to do one more damn thing, right? I get it. Just go to OsteoStrong would be the minimal thing I would do if I had one thing to do. Now there are multiple things that I do, but I'm not a super mega geek on it. Like I'm not one of these guys. I'm going to live to be 150 years old. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but I just choose to live and enjoy my life too. I don't want to be a geek. I mean, I geek out on some things, but I just don't, because you get to the point where you're increasing your own cortisol by being too obsessive on something, right?
Oh, 100%. So how long would someone ideally go to OsteoStrong? And I know there's no, like, prescriptive, like, guidelines you can give us, but do people is it like going to the gym and build muscle? Like, you pretty much have to go
For
indefinitely or
life,
your muscle's gonna atrophy. So, could you just go for a year and you would improve your bone density and then not necessarily have to
Yeah, I
go?
mean, that's true. You could do that. Let's say I've got a negative one T score and I want it to be, well, that's not too bad. If you said do you have osteopenia or
No, I have osteoporosis. It may be more than that. I know
it is
it's
more. So you have to have a minimum, osteoporosis is a T score of negative 2.5 or more.
yeah.
Osteopenia is negative 2 to 2.5. And if anybody wants to know what a T score is and you don't know, it's how many standard deviations are you away from peak bone mass, and peak bone
Remember
mass.
back to that statistics
Yeah,
class you took in
yeah. So
college.
basically, another way to think about it is if you're negative 2.5, you've essentially lost about 25% of your bone mass, which is pretty
Yeah.
bad. Yeah, so don't worry about it. Like totally reversible. So for me, what I would do, like if I was just like, you know what, I don't know if I want to do this, whether or not, however long you do it is up to you, right? Because people continue to get benefits of it. And we've had members who are members for 8, 10 years at this point who just like, I just want to feel this good the rest of my life, right? Then you have other people just saying, if I just get my bone density up to -1 or 0, I'm probably going to outlast my bones at that point, right? I'm probably going to die before MMR fraction. So they're just like, if I just got back to like negative zero point 0.5 or 0, which would be the bone density of a 30-year-old, that'd be great. And you can do that. And so, because you think about this, human beings lose, excluding going through menopause, women, but people losing about 1% bone density per year. So, if it took you to whatever age you are now that long to get to negative 2.5, well, if you got back up to 0, then you would be like, okay, that probably 30 years for me to get back to where I am now.
I'd be really happy
Yeah, sure you would.
with any improvement, honestly, because there are people out there, including my doctors, that have said you cannot gain bone density.
yes, I
And
you
I've had
hear that
other
all the
people,
time.
but I've had acupuncturists and people that practice more Eastern or traditional Chinese medicine that have said, no, you can through supplements and diet and other things. So
So here's the thing is, so what we do at OsteoStrong is we trigger your central nervous system to build bone, muscle, tendon, and ligament density. It also does something for your central nervous system, which improves balance in a really ridiculous way. At all that aside, there are things that could inhibit your success. One, if you do not have proper nutrition to build bone, you're going to have a hard time building bone. Two, if you've got hypothyroidism, low estrogen or low testosterone, and women need testosterone too. In fact, women don't realize this. They make more testosterone than they do estrogen, a lot more. You need all three, but hypothyroidism is the most common deficiency when people have hypothyroidism that inhibits their results. So if you're getting the proper nutrition and your hormones are optimized, you're getting great results.
so I have a question. If you do have low estrogen, which that's my case, and I know a lot of our listeners are also in the menopause phase, so their estrogen is also dropping. Is increasing your bone density possible, or is it just harder, or what exactly are you saying, I guess?
It's harder, but you can. Your results will be much slower.
Okay.
What's considered slower? Like, are you talking 6 months? Are you talking 10 years?
I like to think of it in terms of percentage increases. When I see people's hormones are optimized and their nutrition is good and they're going and doing their sessions, they're seeing anywhere from 5 to 12% increase in bone density per year. If they've got hypothyroidism, they may not see any increase. They may just slow or stop their loss. Women going through menopause, a woman can lose like 20, 25% of their bone mass during menopause. And so, or perimenopause, to be more specific. So we'll have people come that are smack dab in the middle of menopause, go to OsteoStrong, and they will actually have no bone gain and no bone loss, which is massive considering that if your body is really set up to lose 20 to 25% of bone mass and you have no bone loss during menopause, that just shows
Yeah.
you how much bone they were actually growing while they were losing it.
Right. that's still a win.
I have a question. I have like a little case study for you. Okay. So my mom is 80 years old and she obviously went through menopause many years ago. She has osteoporosis. She takes I think they're shots or something that you take, some sort of regular shot that she takes. And then she lately has been having like major hip pain actually. And she got a cortisone shot and that didn't help, and I'm just wondering if this could help her if at 80 years old she's too old to do something like this. What are your thoughts?
I can give you many examples of people coming in their 80s and it just reversed all that. I was just talking to somebody, and I haven't talked about this story in a long time, but here's another opportunity. So when I first started OsteoStrong, we had maybe a couple centers open, and I was down in Houston visiting the center, that one of the prototype centers. We didn't really fully know what we were doing at that point. Still trying to figure out OsteoStrong ourselves. And I walked into the center and there was a guy on our vibe plate, and he jumped off the vibe plate and ran over and goes, I want to shake your hand. The manager screamed. She goes, Richard. I'm like, what do you, I'm kind of freaking out. Like, what is she? She's like, oh my gosh, Kyle. She goes, if you would have seen him 4 weeks ago, you would have thought that would have killed him. I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, he came in on a walker. He's in his mid 80s and he was hunched over like he couldn't even stand up straight. He had gotten quadruple bypass surgery like 9 months before. And so you know that you're when you're old and you're not moving, you age fast. And that's what happens to a lot of people. And his back was painful and he lost all his strength and all the things. And he did like, it was maybe it was 6 sessions, four or 6 sessions, not very many. And then all of the joint and back pain went away. His strength returned, his balance returned. And he was like, yeah, I feel great. Thanks, Kyle. We had a woman come in, one of our very first members. If you're going to launch a global brand, then do what all the greats do. Our very first OsteoStrong opened up in Kearney, Nebraska.
Oh, that's an
Okay.
interesting location.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, what? So Kearney, Nebraska, and this woman comes in. The woman who owned that center is now my director of education. She's phenomenal. Her name is Tammy, and she's got all kinds of personal training type certifications and whatever. So she knows about taking care of people and what they can do and all this kind of stuff. And she calls me up. She says, Kyle, I was like legitimately scared today. I said, what happened? She goes, I had this woman come in. She probably weighed 85 or 90 pounds. She had an oxygen tank that her husband had to wheel behind her.
Oh,
She was
wow.
so weak that she
Yeah.
couldn't walk more than 10 or 15 feet before having just to sit down and rest. It took her like 30 minutes just to get from the car into the center. She goes, it was unbelievable. And I'm doing this. I'm like, is this woman going to just break in half the moment she starts trying to do OsteoStrong? 4 or 6 sessions later, she says, Kyle calls me up. What's up? I wasn't in Kearney. So I said, what's going on? She says, that woman I told you about, she walked in today carrying her oxygen tank under her arm, opened the door and just walked in. There's nothing wrong with her. She's like, had I not seen this myself, she goes, I don't even know what's going on here. One of our first franchisees says, there hasn't been a healing like this since Jesus. I don't even know how to cope with it. My biggest problem, I've got 2 big problems as a franchisor. One is that my franchisees get desensitized to all these results. They're just kind of like, yeah, okay. Oh, another person, 20 years of chronic back pain gone. Yay, high five. Next. So they're not very evangelical about like these kind of things. The other bigger problem I have is that franchisees just don't follow the system. Like this is just follow the system and it works great. And then they change it.
I actually have 2 questions for you. So, my first question is, okay, new client comes in. Are you measuring their results so that they can actually see what is happening to their bodies over time?
Yes, a few things. So strength, balance, bone density, and pain. And A1C theoretically, like one of the original studies showed that, but it's a pretty small study. There's some bigger studies in process now, but they're done. They just haven't published yet on A1C. So I don't know too much to say on that. But what I can say is we test their balance. Their strength is shown through the force production that they experience. So when you push and pull on the devices, it captures the highest amount of force that you're generating on each device. And you see that number going up over time. And then bone density. Not all centers have the ability to do DEXA scans. So there's a new device out there, an Echolight that we're using, which is a very cool device for measuring bone density. So many of our centers, probably about 40 of them, have those now, but not all of them have them. So just go get a DEXA scan, because DEXA scans, even though they use radiation, like they use about as much radiation as a couple of eating a couple of bananas. Like the amount of radiation is like you get more radiation flying on a freaking airplane. But because it has the R word in it, it's regulated. So there's different regulations for different states and radiologists and blah, blah, blah. So it's just hard to buy one and use it in the center, because if you're not a radiologist or a doctor or whatever, they just don't let you do it in some states.
And so you mentioned early on that you would guarantee
Results for me.
results. Right.
Yes.
So if I get a deck, which I actually have an appointment coming up in a few months to get another DEXA scan. If I get one, bring them in, start sessions. What if I go for a year, or what
Well,
would that look like?
here's what I'll do this. If you complete at least 42 sessions in a year, so you can miss 10. All right.
Yeah.
Algae Cal is a great product.
I use that also.
All right, cool. And
Yeah.
you're optimizing your hormone. I'll say if your bone density doesn't go up in either your hip or your spine in a year, I will personally refund your money. Now, one of the
Okay,
things
Kyle.
where,
I'm
yeah, you know how to get
we
a
got a
hold of me.
deal.
All right, no problem. Or you come out here to the ranch and I'll make you a steak, whatever.
Well,
Uh,
I would
So
like to come to
my
the
my
ranch too.
prescription would be different than hers though, because I do not have osteoporosis,
you just
but I
have
have
you just have
scoliosis.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what would be
Same for you. I'll do the same for both of you.
but you
If
think
you're
it
if
would
you're
take a year? And I don't take Algae Cal
I
or
don't know how
whatever.
bad your scoliosis is, so
It's
I'm
mild. I have a
well,
mild C curve.
you're gonna feel your back is gonna feel so much better, and your back pain will probably be gone in less than 10 to 12 sessions. Your spine will likely be straightened out in 6 to 12 months.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah,
Yeah.
one of the things that I'm looking at right now, because we do get a percentage of when people, if they do just, so we've done pre and post DEXA scans on a lot of members, and we were tracking it. Ones that do it with proper nutrition, ones that do it without. If people are doing it with proper nutrition, our data is showing that 95% of the time they're getting results. And they're increasing bone density, either their hip or their spine, and they're doing it in like 12 months. So I'm looking at putting together a program right now that, because we came up with a whole results guaranteed program and taught our franchisees how to do it, and like 7 of them are doing it, and they're like, franchisees, they're just doing what they told. So I just said, screw this. I'm going to figure out how to underwrite those guarantees at the corporate level and just say, you know what, we're the only clinic in the world that is guaranteeing results for people. Because that's the thing about it, is like, one that you asked, like, why are more people talking about this? It's complicated, right? Like, OsteoStrong, even though we've been around since 2012, and we've got like 260 locations in 14 countries now, but by and large, people kind of, well, yeah, I kind of heard of OsteoStrong maybe, but they don't fully understand it, or, it just takes a while because it's so much different than anything else you've ever done to get any kind of a result. You just can't get your head around it. So it's complicated. That's why we're just like, you know what? We're just going to market to people who are concerned about bone density. That's it. Because that people are like, I don't want bone density. I don't want osteoporosis. I don't want to take any stupid medications. And you just start reading the side effects. They're kind of scary. Could be why your mom is having problems with her hip. There's dentists. One of the problems is that people are taking bisphosphonates. You could get this thing called osteonecrosis, which basically your lower mandible of your jaw just dies. It's really bad. And if you want to be really grossed out, go on the internet and type up images of osteonecrosis.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like if you're thinking about like, yeah, I'm taking a bisphosphonate, am I going to have a problem with osteoporosis? You should only be taking it for 4 years. I've seen what I would consider medical malpractice, where I've come across women who've been taking bisphosphonates for 10, 12 years. Their risk of some serious side effects are off the charts. What is their doctor doing? Just prescribing a different brand every 4 years, which is,
Wow.
Wow.
in my opinion, medical
That's
malpractice. I've seen that more times than once. I'm like, "Oh my God," like that.
So why aren't doctors prescribing this to patients?
Come on. You know the
I
answer.
mean, it would seem to make so much sense. Like, are you?
So we have a lot of doctors now that refer patients to OsteoStrong who don't want to take the drug, right? First of all, doctors don't get anything out of referring to OsteoStrong. Well, if you know anything about the medical industry and medical schools, do you know who funds medical schools? Like, why are medical schools so well? It's pharmaceutical companies. I mean, so there's no like exercise and nutrition and this kind of thing are just not really subjects that are covered. And I'm not dissing on doctors. One of my brothers is a doctor, right? I like doctors just fine. Their training is narrow and they're also very busy. This is just another damn thing to learn. What you've seen happening in the biohacking longevity industry is you've seen reason why there's been such an explosion in this industry is that I read a statistic a couple years ago that the trust that people have for the medical industry since COVID has dropped precipitously. I've been in conferences where there's been doctors around and they'll all say, my patients are all questioning my treatment recommendations now, and all the doctors are nodding in unison, right? People realize, hey, I could read research too. I could go listen and follow people that are reading research. And the bad thing about like standards of care in medicine is usually based on 20+ year old research. So people are going, here's an efficacious study. I'm going to create a product around that to give this outcome.
And at the end of the day, like, someone walks into one of your locations with a certain condition and walks out 6 weeks later feeling remarkably better. I mean, that's a scientific study, and it doesn't
That speaks
take
for itself.
it speaks
Uh,
for itself,
yeah,
right?
it speaks for itself.
And I
Absolutely.
think part of it is, like, let's be fair here, it's not inexpensive necessarily, and it's not covered by insurance, and it's not available to everyone from, like, I mean, you have 200 locations, which is amazing, but I actually looked to see, like, "Oh, is it near where my parents live?" And you don't have one there, right? And there isn't one close. So, what can someone do who's listening, who's super motivated by this conversation, but can't physically get to an OsteoStrong? Like, I mean, I'm guessing, like, an HSA would cover this?
We have a deal with United Healthcare through their Optum program, which will pay for the base membership at an OsteoStrong, kinda like just come in and do your session and leave. The franchise owner makes a lot less money off of that, but most of the people that come in and join that membership buy a separate membership just to do everything else in there because 'cause we've got other cool biohacks in an OsteoStrong that people enjoy doing. So they'll sell one of those and they'll get the money from Optum, but there's like 13 million Optum members in the United States, so it's a massive win for us, and a lot of our franchisees are benefiting from that.
And can you use a health savings account?
Yes, we
Okay,
use a health savings account. Yeah.
great. And I
Well,
mean,
I
it
know
is quick and easy, I will say that. So, as far as adding another thing to your week, it's what, 10 minutes within
Yeah,
7 days?
and you come dressed as you are. You can
Plus
wear
your drive
whatever.
time, but yeah.
Yeah, just
So,
as you yeah, plus your drive time, wear whatever you want. Just go on in. There you go. Life is
y
good.
yep,
it's
yep.
really hard to get my mind around this.
I know,
Just
right?
It
because I've
almost
never
seems like
been
you're not
it
doing I mean, I did it,
yeah.
and I was like, "Okay." I mean, I felt the pressure, but I was a little skeptical, I will say this. This was a few years ago now, and it just wasn't working with my schedule. I just couldn't make it work, and now that there's one opening up or already opened up like a year ago, closer to me, after this conversation and doing a little more research, I'm gonna try. I have nothing to lose for a year not to try this, right?
I wanna congratulate you on your future results. So
Yeah.
and you certainly
Well,
have nothing to lose
you'll be
because
the
I
first
told
to
you I'd
know
give you your
the
money
second.
back.
Yeah, well, I will be You'll hear from me either way, Kyle, but
Yeah,
hopefully
super
with good
cool.
news.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
and if I can have a flat, straight spine, like, wow, I don't even know how I would be shouting from the rooftops to everyone.
there you
Yeah.
go. All
Yep.
right, well, I appreciate that. I think for me, a successful franchisee is a reflection of how many people they're helping. What it did for my son, what it did for me, what it did for my wife. It's just done for so many people. It is such a fuel in my tank. I really don't care. I'm weird because I don't care about significance. I really don't get any, like, I don't give a crap if anybody knows my name. I really don't. But I really like helping people. I love the stories. I'm like going, "Oh, just because I know how I used to feel, and I don't like people being fearful. I don't like people being in pain." And so whenever I see somebody, a franchisee that's just killing it, I just think of, like, how many hundreds of people are experiencing just exactly what I've experienced. And you're out there living your life. Like, I'm 50. 6 years old now. I have no joint and back pain. I was in London a few years ago, and this guy, I was at a Tony Robbins event, and this guy walks up. He looks like a gorilla. He is practically as wide as he is tall, like this all muscled, beard, tats, everything. And he's one of those professional strength competitor guys. And it was Tony was on stage. When Tony's on stage, nobody's coming out and to interact with you. There's this one dude walks up and he's like, all right, tell me about this. So I tell him about what it is. And every time I try and tell him, he's like, yeah. I already train like that. I was like, no, you can't train like that because you don't have access to this equipment. And so finally he's like, well, just want to try it. So I let him try it. He goes through and does everything. And I said, I'm about to show you something, not because I'm seeking significance, not trying to make you wrong and me right or whatever. I said, I'm just trying to make your universe bigger, because if you could understand what I'm about to show you, you will be winning gold medals in 6 months in whatever you do. He's like, okay, whatever. So I went to each machine. I told him, I said, there's a maximum force production number on each machine. I'm like 25 years older than you. All right. I'm fit. I'm somewhat athletic, but I'm not a professional athlete. And then I went on each device and I was able to generate substantially more force on each device than that guy could. And so he was pissed. So he had to go try to beat me and he couldn't beat me. And I'm just like, I'm not anything special. All I'm doing is triggering my central nervous system to add bone and muscle density every week. And then go have a cocktail, right? Like, great thing about biohacking, you're trying to find the most easy, efficient way to get a result possible so you could go live your freaking life. When I first started this company, the guy I hired, he came from the gym industry. He's like, he kept referring to OsteoStrong as a lifestyle business. I'm like, what do you mean by that? Well, it's part of lifestyle. I'm like, I don't want to change anybody's lifestyle. I want to enable them to live whatever freaking lifestyle they want. They're only here for 10 minutes once a week. This is not a lifestyle thing. It's kind of annoying. I got to go into OsteoStrong for 10 or 15 minutes once a week, but the results you're getting are freaking awesome.
Well, you're having such a profound impact on people's quality of life, and that is huge. It doesn't matter like the size of their muscle or anything, right? If they can live and do what they want to do every day without being in pain and suffering, that's it. That's jackpot, right?
I'll tell you one last thing. We test everybody's balance when they come in. We just have them stand on one foot. There's different talents tests we do. And I read a study that Bloomberg published about 2.5, 3 years ago. And what they did was they took over 1,000 people over the age of 65, and they asked them to stand on one foot for 10 seconds. Then 10 years later, they went and checked on these people. Those that could not confidently stand on one foot for 10 seconds had an 82% higher mortality rate. When people come to OsteoStrong, we do the same thing. We test them, but we test it like every time. And we'll have people come in that are really unstable, could barely stand on one foot in a few seconds maybe. And after 5 or 6 sessions, they're standing solidly on one foot for 20, 30 seconds. They're just like, oh, my
Yeah.
balance is back.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
Crazy.
So we have
All
to
right.
wrap up this conversation,
Yes.
Kyle, but it's been eye-opening. I mean, I'm excited to try it and to have our audience learn about it.
You don't have to have me back on, but I would love to hear about both your results.
We
That would
for
mean
sure
a
will
lot
be
to me.
talking
I'm
about it.
wondering if our listeners want to connect with you or go to OsteoStrong. What's the best route?
Yeah, they just go to osteostrong.me and find locations. Every location will let you just go try a session at no charge. Some of them are offering the guarantee, but even if they aren't offering a guarantee, if I'm willing to go out there and start that at the corporate level, then it's probably going to work for you. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. Make sure you do like Algae Cow and OsteoStrong, you'll get better results. And if you really want to, check your thyroid.
Those are good points to consider before embarking on this. So, Kyle, one final question we love asking all of our guests is, what does the art of living well mean to you?
The art of living well, being at peace, finding joy in everything, just being happy with, real quickly, they did an interview of people who lived to be 100 years old. And they asked the question to them, like, what would you change? What do you regret? And the one thing they would change was they wish they spent more time with the people they love. The art of living well for me is being surrounded by people that I love, who love me, and just enjoying my life. That's the art of living well. It's not art. It's just easy. Declutter your life.
Totally.
Live your life.
So well said. Couldn't agree
Yeah.
more. Listeners out there, you will be hearing from Marnie and I as we embark on our
OsteoStrong journey.
program. Yeah. All right. Have a great day. Bye,
day.
Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Art of Living Well podcast. If today's episode inspired you, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It helps more people discover our show.
And if you're ready to take your health and happiness to the next level, we would love to support you. Whether it's through our transformative group programs, personalized coaching, or functional medicine lab testing, we help uncover the root causes of your health challenges and unlock your vitality.
Visit www.theartoflivingwell.us to learn more and book a free discovery call. Until next time, keep creating your art of living well.